Imagine a war fought in the deserts of southern Africa that would decide the fate of apartheid. Now imagine that the soldiers who turned the tide, who fought and died to defeat South Africa's racist regime, didn't come from a neighboring country. They came from a small island in the Caribbean, over 5,000 miles away. This is the strange, pivotal story of the Angolan Civil War, a global conflict on African soil that reshaped the continent. I'm Ibnul Jaif Farabi, and this is Flashpoints, the wars that shaped us. When Angola gained its independence from Portugal in 1975, it immediately exploded. Three rival liberation movements, each backed by rival Cold War superpowers, began fighting for control. But this wasn't just an internal struggle. It became a proxy war for the world. The Soviet Union backed the MPLA, one of the factions. The United States and apartheid South Africa backed its opponents. And into this tinderbox, Fidel Castro's Cuba made an astonishing decision to send its own army to fight for the MPLA. Cuba's intervention was bold, unprecedented. They called it Operation Carlotta, after a slave who led a rebellion. And their reason was ideological, but also profoundly moral. Castro saw the South African invasion as the advance of fascism, a direct parallel to the colonialism Cuba had fought against. He sent troops not as Soviet puppets, but on his own initiative, driven by a vision of international solidarity. Soon, thousands of Cuban soldiers were arriving in Angola with tanks, planes, and a level of discipline and skill that shocked everyone on the ground. The defining moment came at the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale, a sprawling, months-long siege in 1987 and 1988. South African forces, supporting one of the rebel groups, had the MPLA and their Angolan allies cornered. The situation was desperate. Then, the Cubans arrived in force. Castro personally oversaw a massive reinforcement and a daring flanking maneuver, moving thousands of troops to the southwest to threaten the border of Namibia, which South Africa occupied. The battle turned into a stalemate, but a decisive one. For the first time, the seemingly invincible South African Defense Force was checked, and not by a superpower, but by Cuba. The psychological and political impact was seismic. The myth of South African military invincibility, a key pillar of the apartheid state, was shattered. Nelson Mandela, still in prison, would later say that Cuito Cuanavale was the turning point for the liberation of our continent and my people. The defeat forced South Africa to the negotiating table. It led directly to Namibia's independence and, crucially, it convinced the apartheid government that its era of regional domination was over. The road to Mandela's release and South Africa's first democratic elections began on those Angolan battlefields. It's a story that always makes me pause. Here was Cuba, a poor country itself, spending immense resources to fight a war on another continent. They weren't defending their borders, they were defending an idea. As an engineer, I think in systems and practical outcomes. But history reminds us that ideas of freedom, of solidarity, can be the most powerful variables in any equation. The Cubans who fought in Angola believed they were repaying a historical debt to Africa, from whose shores their own ancestors had been taken in chains. They flipped the script from the trauma of the slave trade to a voluntary, sacrificial return. The Angolan Civil War itself would rage on for years after, a tragic and complex conflict. But that flashpoint, that international collision over Cuito Cuanavale, created a chain reaction that helped break apartheid's back. It's a stark lesson in how interconnected our world is, how a struggle in one corner of the globe can be fundamentally linked to justice in another. A war in Africa, decided by soldiers from the Caribbean, to free a nation at the continent's southern tip. History is rarely a straight line, but sometimes its most unexpected detours lead to the most profound destinations. For Flashpoints, I'm Ibnul Jaif Farabi. This episode was produced by Light Knot Studios. You can find more of our narratives at https://www.lightknotstudios.com. Thank you for listening.